Hi guys! So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make those mustache pillowcases. They're pretty easy to make and they're pretty cheap. I got the pillowcases for about $6 and the fabric for about $3 or $4. I don't remember quite how much. I wouldn't recommend this to be your very first project ever if you've never sewn before. But for those of you who have done like a little bit of sewing, this will probably be pretty easy for you guys. It's not super difficult, and I do walk you through it, so that helps. Now, the hardest part of this whole thing is just going to be drawing the pattern. Some of you guys will be able to draw it just by yourself and you won't need me to show you how to. Others will need me to show you how to and you probably won't even understand me, which won't be that great. And then other guys will just get it automatically. So we'll just see how this kind of goes. You guys can leave me questions and comments down below and I will answer them hopefully as best as I can. And so yeah, let's just kind of get into the tutorial and see how it goes. The first thing that we're going to want to do is make our pattern for a mustache. I made my mustache pattern on this tissue paper. It was the easiest thing I could find to use. You can also use newspaper or cardboard or anything like that if you have it on hand. With tissue paper, I like it because it is see-through, so because I used a measuring board, and with the see-through paper it was the easiest that I could do. I also like that I can just tape it together really easy and it doesn't have any writing on it, so I can see where I marked. So that's the easiest thing I could find to use. Now for this pattern, you do not have to do the traditional mustache like I'm doing. You can look up different mustaches online, and if you like any of those better, then of course you can do those, but I'm not going to show you how to draw them. This is the one I'm going to show you how to draw and the measurements that I used. Now you don't have to make it exactly the same as mine. Some of you guys would probably do better if you just freehanded it yourself. But for those of you who really need my help, I'm going to show you the measurements that I used, and hopefully they'll be helpful. It'll be a little difficult though because, like I said, I'm just showing you how to draw it. Now another good thing about the tissue paper is that it happened to be almost exactly the same size as a pillowcase. So mine is pretty much, the same size as a pillowcase, so I know exactly how it's going to be on my pillowcase. But I probably will move the mustache down a little bit just because I don't like exactly where it is on my paper. But for this demonstration, for showing you guys how to do the pattern, you're going to have to put your pattern exactly on the same place that I did on the tissue paper or newspaper or anything like that. And you're going to know that simply by the corners. We're going to use that corner as a guideline. So for this mustache, I'm going to just show you different spots on the mustache that I marked with different inches, and you're just going to have to hit those inch marks when you make your mustache, and that's about as good as I can do for telling you how to make your mustache. For here, we're going to start by the inside of your mustache. That's the easiest place to start, I believe. And for the markings that I put on my mustache, we have on the inside of the mustache we have all the inches inward, and on the outside of the mustache we have all the inches down from the top of the page. So the inside markings are from the side of your paper to the inside, and then the outside of the mustache are from the top down. Pretty easy to remember, except for I have a few exceptions. Here I didn't do exactly that just because there were no inches inward. So here, starting here, we have 2 inches down and 9.5 inches down. So here's 9.5, 2.5, there's 7.5 inches difference between here. Over here we have 1/2 inch down and 15 inches in. Here we have 15 inches in and 11.5 inches down. So there's an 11-inch difference right here. Over here we're going to go 1 inch down and 10 inches in. Then we go 10 inches in and 15 inches down. About over here is a 10-inch difference in the mustache. The inches are going to go down from here on. So we have 7.5 inches in width, but then it goes 11, 10, 5, 3, and 1.5 inches. So they're just getting smaller from here on up. Here we have 7 inches down and 16 inches in. Then we have 16 inches in and 15.5 inches down. Over here we have 10 inches down and 22 inches in, 22 inches in and 15 inches down. There is a 5-inch difference here. Over here we have a 7 inches down and a 25.5 inches in, 28.5 inches in, and 7 inches down. Over here we have 2.5 inches down and 22.5 inches in. It's going to be a 1.5 inch difference about around here. And then we have at the very tip of the mustache, that's going to be 7 inches down and 21 inches in. So from here across is all 7 inches, so this is about a straight plane right there. And then if you look at these markings that I put, at almost every mark you're going to basically start to change direction with your pen. So from here we kind of started curving up now, and then here we started curving in, here we started curving down. So basically all the inch marks are kind of like when you change direction, and they're about a good distance apart from each other. So yeah, just mark little dots on your paper where all those inches are, and then take your pen and kind of hit each mark as you go around and make your mustache. And that's basically as much as I can help you with that. Once you've made your pattern, you're going to want to cut it out. Now, for cutting your pattern out, you're going to want to give yourself a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which I did not draw on my pattern just because I wanted to know exactly what my mustache was going to look like without the seam allowance. So that's what I drew, and now when I cut my pattern out, I'm going to give myself that extra 1/4 inch of a seam allowance when I cut it. You can do it either way. You can draw your pattern with that extra 1/4 inch if you would like, or you can cut your pattern out with that extra 1/4 inch, or you can cut your pattern out and then when you cut your fabric out you can cut the extra 1/4 inch. It doesn't matter which way you do it, all 3 ways are fine. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to cut my pattern out with the extra 1/4 inch, and then when I do that I will make sure I cut my fabric out with that extra 1/4 inch. Like I said, you can do it any way that you would like. Once you have your pattern cut out, you're going to want to cut out your fabric, which is really easy to do. For me, I just folded my fabric that I have in half, and then I stuck my mustache on it, and then I pinned it, and I'm just going to cut it out. Now, you don't have to fold your fabric in half. You could just leave it out and then, put your mustache on the best way that you can. But you just need to make sure that you have your pattern on both sides of the mustache. So if you're going to cut it this way on one part of the fabric, then you have to make sure that you flip the pattern over and do the other side on the other side of the fabric, because then you'll have 2 of this side of your mustache, and that will be no good. You want to have both sides. Now, if you have a fabric like mine that's just black and is the same color black on the other side, it doesn't really matter if you do that. But if you have a pattern on your fabric, you must flip your pattern over and do both sides of your mustache, or fold your fabric in half, and then you'll have both sides. So just make sure that you do that, and you don't want to mess up and waste all that fabric. And that's pretty self-explanatory how to cut your fabric out. Like I said, just pin your pattern to your fabric, cut it out, and then we'll move on to our next step. Once you have your mustache cut out, we are going to sew it to our pillowcase. There's a few things that we have to do in order to do that. The first thing is we have to tuck in our seam allowances so that we don't see the raw edges. And this is really quite simple to do. It just takes a little bit of time. You are going to need a scissors and either an iron, or what I like to use is actually an old straightener. I find that using an old straightener for an iron is actually really easy and simple to do. So for this, I have my mustache, and what I've done is I have tucked the seam allowance in, and then just took my straightener and, you know, straightened the edges out. Now, like I said, you could use your regular iron or anything like that, but you're going to want to somehow make sure that it stays straight. Another thing that you're going to need to do is use a scissors and cut little slits in different places so that your fabric can turn with the curve of the mustache. That is needed because if you don't, it's going to be really bumpy and just it doesn't work as well. So you're definitely going to need some scissors to cut some slits in, and it's fine. Like, it's really easy to do. You just have these little flaps and then you iron them down. And then after you've done that to your whole mustache, you're going to lay it against your pillowcase, and then you will take your pins and pin all the way around your mustache and then sew it on. Now you got to make sure that you sew in between the pillowcases and not the two sides of the pillowcase together. Sometimes people forget that they can't do that, and then you won't be able to put a pillow into your pillowcase, which is no good. And then after you've done your first mustache pillow, you're going to need to take your second one and put it up to your first one, and make sure that you put the mustache in the same place here so that they're not, like, you know, on different spots and you have a lopsided mustache. You want to make sure that you put them in the exact same spot so that they come together in the middle, just like that. And that's really all you have left to do. Thank you for watching this video. If you mustache me a question, you can ask me in the comments below. Bye!